Welcome to the latest in the Russo-British Chamber of Commerce webinar series. Today, we'll be looking at the HR challenges facing business as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic. My name's Alf Torrance. I'm the Executive Director of the RBCC, and today's panel is from ManpowerGroup Russia CIS, an iconic consultancy and leader in developing and delivering innovative staffing solutions for its clients. I'm delighted to welcome to today's panel Hugh Piper, Country Manager, Sergio Basto, Sales and Operations Director, and Mikhail Tuzov, Head of Business Intelligence and Solutions. Thank you all for taking the time to be here with us today. A big thank you, of course, to all RBCC member and friends for participating in today's event as well. Before we get started, a short explanation as to how today's webinar will run. After I finish, the panel will each be making a short presentation. I'm sure many of you will want to put questions to the panel afterwards. Please use the chat room function to send us your questions during the course of the webinar. The RBCC team will be monitoring the chat room and will try to pick out some of the more popular themes. If you want to ask a question in person, please use the hand up function. That's the blue hand on the Zoom app. Also, please remember to keep yourself on mute. If you're going to ask a question direct, obviously unmute yourself, and most importantly, remute yourself once you've finished. We will be recording the webinar and we'll make it available to everyone either this afternoon or first thing tomorrow. Hugh, one of the few upsides of the pandemic is that it offers companies an opportunity to transform the way they do business. I'd be very interested to hear your insights on this once we've watched this short introductory video.
Just started their first jobs. The workers of the future just celebrated 30 years. The workers of the future are as diverse as the 7 billion people on our planet. They are not just on the job as much as on a journey, and not led by a compass as much as curiosity. They have expectations that equality will one day mean equity, and that opportunity will be all-inclusive. The workers of the future will learn to navigate change. The most successful share a critical skill, the ability and desire to acquire more skills. They will not be displaced by robots, but will embrace them and lead them. The workers of the future are searching for new experiences. What they seek as much as wealth is well-being. What they are looking for isn't found in work from 9 to 5 or in traveling to work at all. The workers of the future may be found in unexpected places. Their true talents may lie between the lines on a resume or not read the same as a job description. The workers of the future want an understanding of who and where they are today, so they will find their place tomorrow. Because it's the worker of the future who will shape the future of work. We're all going to have a first day back to work, back to school, back to morning commutes and packed lunches and to-go coffee. But this first day will mean different things to different people, happen at different times and under different circumstances. To some, that first day will mean everything. It's the rebirth of a routine, an outlet, a structure for the day, and the steady paycheck that supports their family. To others, it's learning how to work in ways that look very different from the past, carefully and cautiously stepping into the future. On that first day back, and the ones that will follow, we all must work together to ensure our return feels safe, right, and welcomed. Because when machines power back up and the hum of the workforce returns, together, we're doing more than just turning the lights back on. We're turning lives back on.
Okay. So, hello. Good morning to the UK and good afternoon to Russia. And I'm Hugh Piper, and I've been with Manpower over 20 years. And just in case anybody is in it, if I'm in any doubt, I have behind me, as you can see, Russia is watching me, even although I'm in the UK. So Moscow is looking down on me even as we speak. So I've spent the last 5 years flying every week, almost every week to Russia. So I can truly be called the Flying Scotsman. But I'm really delighted to be opening this meeting and a discussion on the power of flexibility. Now, I have to really think about that. I find that this is one of the most bizarre situations that I have experienced in my short working life. Here we all are. We've spent the last 120 days in the most inflexible conditions any of us have ever experienced. We're facing the hidden enemy of COVID-19, which is still sadly alive and well. It's personally impacting our own lives, our family lives, our country lives, and we're at war in what remains a very inflexible world. Here in the UK, it is obey the COVID rules or else. And yet I'm starting this conversation and saying we need the power of flexibility going forward. And you know, it's amazing. In just 14 short days in Russia and in the UK and globally, the pandemic brought about the biggest, we have no choice but to totally change the way we work. We moved 300 people out of our head office in Russia to work from, and our other offices to work from home. We had over 8,000 people across Russia and Kazakhstan and other countries having to change the way they work, how they travel. In 100 days, this pandemic has brought about the biggest revolution in the way we work for over 100 years. It is shown, firstly, that employees have come to understand that they now have massive choices because they've discovered all sorts of things. For example, people have discovered, and the employees, your employees have discovered, that working from home is totally possible and practical. The other thing they understand is they can work without being within the eyesight of their boss. That is a Russian revolution. And I can work at home and still manage child issues to an extent. But what about this one? I do not lose a quarter of my working day spending 2 to 4 hours traveling or commuting to work. Oh, and it's exciting in the summer because I can work from my dacha instead of my flat in Moscow. And even better, a double whammy benefit. I can work during the week from my parents' home and then have free childcare and, of course, happy grandparents if you've got good children. So this inflexibility for 100 days has created the biggest flexibility demand in our working history. And I would put it in this way. Remote working has become the new currency. So tell me a question. How will you spend the currency, whether you're an employer or an employee? You know, workers have discovered their own boundaries. They now know what they can and can't do. Their priorities and requirements have changed forever. And employees are much more in the driving seat, and candidates even more. So candidate conversations will be much more intense. They'll be longer, more complicated. They want to know how flexible you as an employer will be, how they may be able to just travel to work occasionally or not travel to work at all. What about their childcare? How could that be looked after? And importantly, anyone from HR, how will you support them emotionally as they work in a more isolated way? And how will they learn and be trained? All of these things. And you know, at the beginning of this year, 5% of roles had no location on them. Now it's well over 20%, and that is going to grow fast. Interestingly, Facebook have just seen the fact that many of their employees have now moved to lower cost locations. They thought they could take advantage of lower cost locations. But employees, be careful, because salaries might be based on where your home is and not where your workplace is. So the premium of Moscow might even disappear, or the premium of London. Why, you might ask? Because companies are now going to get applications from people who are able to work remotely from lower cost locations. And it's a dynamic marketplace, and price will be part of that marketplace. And if middle managers, I think middle management is vulnerable, because this new normal means that their micromanagement of people and teams has become less important. And according to the Ministry of Labor in Russia, they're suggesting that unemployment in the country may increase to 5 or 6 million people post-pandemic. The ILO, the International Labour Organization, expects an increase up to 8 million people. So this would be the biggest unemployment level seen over 30 years in Russia. And every 10th worker could be looking for jobs. Unemployment doubled between April and May. However, there are some other interesting things happening across Russia. As many of you will know, many of the blue-collar, low-level jobs have been carried out by individuals from the Stan countries. They cannot come into Russia. And so blue-collar working is in a boom time in Russia. And for some jobs, it can be a premium of 30 to 50% just for the role. In the US, they're seeing the same. Blue-collar workers are being able to claim between $2 and $10 extra per hour. And in Russia, e-commerce is exploding. So the pay of food delivery couriers has reached 40,000 rubles per month. So what we are experiencing is the new reality. This will be the new normal. Flexibility is the key. And we are already experiencing in our business something we would call try before you buy. Why? Because people are not sure how this will work for them, either as the employer or as the candidate. And so we're seeing a real growth in temporary work, where people have the opportunity to try somebody before they finally buy them, but vice versa. And so this applies both ways. The new normal, the new reality, the new flexibility is now here. Remote working is the new currency. How are you going to spend it? Thank you, Alf. Sergio.
Thank you very much, Hugh, for those words. Good morning, colleagues. Hello from Russia. Hello, UK. My name is Sergio Basto. I'm a Portuguese based in Moscow. So I have Moscow right on my feet, not on the backs like Hugh mentioned it. And I'm leading sales and operations for Manpower Russia and CIS. Colleagues, like Hugh had mentioned, in the past few months, we have living one of the most challenging periods for us individuals, but also organizations, countries, lives, and economies. Of course, some of us will say that we have been through these different situations during our history and it's just one more. Might be true. But the fact is, this never happened in old world at the same time. And we should not forget that we are not talking just about economic situation, but also social, health, humanitarian, ethnic, which make it even more complex and difficult to predict how our future and how our business lives and career will evolve. And here, colleagues, we are today to share, like you mentioned, some HR strategies that we believe can make a step change and give competitiveness that Russia and Russian organizations as individuals or companies are looking for, like in some European and world countries had happened in the past. But colleagues, let me just contextualize till I would say last year, if I can consider like that, we were having market dynamics based on the organization strategy. The strategy would be defined, the consumer would be targeted, the productions or sales cycle was defined, and we would find and attract the talent according to our strategy as organizations. Of course, preventing all about some disruptions and some business situations. But now, in 2020, we had new reality. And it's not only this pandemic situation that we can assist in the last month or year, but also in Europe, the Brexit, worldwide BLM, the millennials that come from already a couple of years, and definitely a social change in our reality. This takes us definitely to a certain uncertainty. This is the new reality, uncertainty. The market is completely uncertain. We will have fast projects, digitalization or e-commerce or different buying channels as we were talking. The talent and the workforce can be everywhere. Which skills companies and employees needs to reorganize themselves and evolve. And more important than ever is the fact that is not the employer now that is attracting also companies, but is the employee and the behavior of his employee that will make a huge criteria to accept work on this organization or not, and companies be able to attract workforce. So organizations more and more needs to think about the consumer, the employees, and the candidates, of course, then in themselves. In the last few months, I have been talking with several organizations, candidates, associates, and we have noticed that the opinions, the perceptions, the facts, the goals, they are all totally different from each other, which make us this situation even more complex. And colleagues, like all of us here, we have been thinking about this a lot, investigating, forecasting, as a companies, as organizations, individuals, how the market will behave, what is going to be the curve of my production cycle or my sales cycles, how I will organize my business process, how I will keep communication and engagement with my teammates and with my staff, how my consumers will buy my products or how I will spell my products. Is my IT infrastructure robust enough and sufficient enough for what we will have? On the other hand, candidates also have some paradox and the skills that they need to maximize to keep them available and keep them marketability and capable to win some business. And this is a problem that also all the HR companies, and even yesterday, I was talking with an HR from an FMCG company who told me that it's been very difficult to execute any plan due to the fact that we don't know where this situation will end, how it will end, where and when the impact will be really felt by the organizations and the people. And moreover, is the staff and the employees confident to back to the real life? Many of the surveys say that employees want to 50% of their balance working remotely. So it means that organizations and companies and even us need all to learn, need all to understand how this will evolve and how we will be able to continue. Because employees tell us every day, and candidates, where we make plenty of interviews and try to engage candidates with organizations, they want to understand how is going to be the new normal, how is going to be their career, what will be their schedule, how stable their schedule and the plans and career will be, how I will communicate also with my line manager, not forgetting, like you also mentioned, personal issues like children care, family, and all these things. And colleagues, it's right because of this that we believe that Russia and Russian organizations have the right moment to change the way that they're planning their workforce and their skills. And we truly believe that a solution which will be efficient and work according to the evolution of the market will be the temporary staff and the temporary employees. If we see this graphic that I would like to show from the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, these are the top 15 most productive countries in the world, with a GDP per hour in average higher than $50. And where we can see that Russia appears in number 42 in the ranking. On the next slide, I would like to show you the penetration rate of working population of the staffing employees. In other words, the number of temporary workers within the total working population within the country, where again, Russia appears with only 0.35%, very below the average of the world, which is 1.6. We can see also in gray color. And last, the correlation that we, Manpower, through the times and all the organizations have been making within the utilization of temporary workforce to increase the productivity, so you can make the conclusions by yourself. And why, colleagues, we really believe that this will make a step change in our future and in our businesses and in our organizations, because we can assess the workload requires a full-time position or not. Definitely, we will reduce the costs of overtimes and recruitment, because we will adjust the curve of our employees according to our demand. Office seasonality on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, that definitely is crucial for the day-to-day activities. Also, we can fill gaps on the long leave employees. We can increase the trial period up to 9 months more than a normal trial period of 3 months. And last but not least, we can definitely increase internal competitiveness and results, because the employees will want to keep the job and want to come employees on a flexible point of view. But also why we are saying that regarding temporary staffing, and how you mentioned that is not only a question of organization, but only staff. We can see in this graphic that Russia employees turnover is one of the highest in Europe. For the last 3 years, we can see that in average, 25 people in each 100 changed the job within 1 year. And colleagues, we all know for organizations, for companies, how cost is the fact that one employee leaves and we need to restart over for that. But also by the fact that in the big metropolis in Russia, 50% or more than 50% of the young employees prefer to stay unemployed or leave the company rather than keep working for an organization that not fit anymore their expectations and their careers. Employees more and more are willing for flexibility. The majority of the young generation of employees, and we can judge for some of our relatives or even sons, they don't know what they want to do in the future. What's going to be their career? What is going to be their position? More and more, they prefer freelancer roles, and we can see this race all over Europe and all over the world instead of long-term commitments and long-term contracts. And these colleagues, I would like to share of all of you from a recent survey also that we had made from our candidates and associates. In our past reading, 49% of the temporary employees say that become a temporary worker is a great way to find the permanent job and to define their career in the future. 9 out of 10 temporary employees ensure that they become more employable after try different roles and different positions because they understand better the company, they understand better their role and their attitude inside of the organization. 35% of the temporary employees was offered a permanent job from the company, which means that a big part of them were also not fitting the expectations of the organization, or the demand and the curve of the company will not require that amount of jobs. So give this flexibility to the organization and to the company in terms of increase their results and their profitability. 2 out of 5 temporary employees told us that scheduling a flexible job is a key for them to choose the company that they work and for them to choose what will be in our career. And more important than this, 76% of the work full-time comparable to the overall workforce, which is 82% in terms of the global working population. So colleagues, that's why we truly believe that if in our organizations we adjust this tool, which is the temporary workforce in our curve, we'll definitely become more productive and more efficient. We will be adjustable for the future, and will also link to the expectations of associates and candidates for the future. This is the message that I would like to pass here today, encouraging, of course, ourselves all to the future, because this situation didn't brought us only challenges, I would say, or concerns. These situations, and I have seen among all the companies, countries, a huge team spirit, union, motivation, engagement to go for it, that together definitely will overcome the situation and will have a better place to work in the future for the organizations and for candidates. And now, Misha, Michael, I will pass to you the words where he will show us some good examples how flexibility and temporary workforce will help us within our plans and our strategies that we have been implemented also and live in Russia market. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergio. Hello, everyone. I'm Mikhail, or as my colleagues used to call me for quite a long time since I started my career, Michael. And I worked for about 10 years in Japan as in a field of semiconductor. Then I returned back to Russia and worked for the Japanese trading company for a couple of years. And then I joined ManpowerGroup Russia, and in a week it will turn 12 years that I'm with Manpower, and I'm quite proud to be the part of this great company. So I will start my presentation, my part of the presentation, from the general slide is how the temporary labor is aligned with the general HR strategy. We at Manpower call it 4Bs strategy, which is corresponding from build, buy, borrow, and bridge of talent. So interestingly enough, the temporary labor tend to be understood as a borrow part of this strategy, because companies tend to attract temporary labor from the market. by using the staffing companies or outsourcing providers, but also in latest development, the bridge part of the strategy is not only about upskilling of staff, but also about the workforce career management, where the companies can give a hand to employees and do a temporary release of staff by help of the staffing companies. And one more peculiar thing about the strategy is that some time ago, a company could lean on to the one or two Bs in this scenario, for example, only buying from the market or building their own competences in a highly, how to say, a competitive area. But right now, we see that the most successful companies have to leverage all four of these strategies in one package. So this is quite important. So the temporary labor becomes the vital part in every organization's strategy. Okay. How do I scroll? Sergio, help me. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, well, my part of the presentation will have some figures, as I'm with the business intelligence department. So, but I will try to make it as lucrative as I can. So this slide is to represent the difference we see over the past years in a days on assignment average. So this introduced the idea that people tend to work less at one given assignment. So on average, if you take a look on the left side of the slide, on average in 2016, people worked 190 days per one assignment, while in 2019, the weighted average for one assignment decreased down to 42 days. And if you take a look at the breakdown for gender and generations, we see that there is a difference, but we also we see that all genders and all generations are going down. And more interestingly, if you take a look on a special focus onto the multiple employment, that is, the particular person has several labor contracts with Manpower in this frame of 5 years, we can see that there is a drastic, the picture is even more drastic. For example, the most stable baby boomers male, they go down from 329 days, that is almost 1 year per assignment, down to 90 days, that's just 1 quarter. And the most, how to say, agile, most agile female in generation Y, they used to take assignment for 1 quarter, but now they on average work only 11 days per assignment. So what does this mean? We understand ourselves as a Uber in the world of work. So we are entering, definitely we are entering the gig work, and this trend will carry on, we believe, and the assignments will become shorter and shorter. So what does this mean? This means that our clients can leverage a greater flexibility. They can have just in time and just in case educated workforce and calibrated workforce. And for us, it means that we have to manage the increased amount of how to say, per unit, an increased amount of requests for a quite short assignments. So for us, this is partially the challenge, and partially this is where we can show the value to our clients. And on average, you can see that the decrease is about 80%. So we believe this will carry on, this trend will carry on, and in following years, the number of days per assignment will go down. Oops. Okay, so a slide to describe the nature of the temporary work in Russia. In 2016, a new law that described staffing has been imposed in Russia. We call it a 116 federal law, which is FZ, a coin from Russian. So this law introduced staffing because until 2016, there was only a notion in the tax code that companies can use temporary labor, but not in the labor code. So this was a great step into making the temporary labor white part of the labor market. So what we see, if we count the number of associates that are on our books, if you take a look on the number of associates that are in a staffing mode, we can see that it increased from 2016 up to 25% and then keeps steady into 2019. And the rest of the associates are employed and we provide outsourcing services to our clients. So what is the difference? Why is the staffing is taking about a quarter of the workforce? That is due to the fact that, as we can see, the majority of our clients that use staffing legal framework is these clients are in a production area and they are not quite ready to pass to us, to a provider, the on-the-floor management of the workforce, but still they would like to get access to a greater flexibility, because we experience from our established big accounts, we experience a demand in an increase of flexibility about a 40%, and for some particular areas, the demand might grow within the year at 200 to 300%. So this is quite a challenge, and I will explain how we deal with this challenge. So when we talk about the flexibility, we tend to separate two big modes, how the flexibility can be measured throughout time. So the first part is fluctuation. So this is referring to a long-term forecast that our clients issue to us. And on the right side, you can see a sample graph that represents the units average per month that should be produced by the shop floor. And based on this long-term forecast, we at Manpower adjust our hiring plan. We decompose the units in the forecast into the hiring plan and the equipment plan. And of course, we develop a robust pricing model. And this is very important because we see that even for the blue-collar workers, we cannot anymore call the blue collars a low-skilled labor. So at some of our clients, the training ramp-up period for an employee could account for like several months. So there the question pops up. So when our client wants a quick increase in labor, we have to provide not just people from the field. We have to bring up a skilled and qualified person. So the hiring plan is a very interesting and challenging point for us. And then comes the volatility. So when we talk about, so volatility is about the actual assignments or actual production plan that is delivered throughout the day or throughout the shift. So the sample graph showing units actuals is showing that the average production per day is set to 2,000 units, but you can see that the deviation that we have could reach 20 or 30 or even above 50% from the average. And we have to adjust the number of the staff according to these fluctuations in a given shop, and sometimes around several shops at one client. So we have to adjust for different types of volatility per each place we run. And what we see is that the volatility factor becomes more and more important, over important than fluctuation. And sometimes the volatility can even influence the hiring plan because of the big drops or big increase in demand, like we saw in the beginning of the COVID situation, when there was a extreme increase in some particular products with our FMCG clients. And the last slide from me is just to represent this volatility point that you can see in a dotted line. The blue dotted line is the number of units planted per shift. We have 2 12-hour shifts per day, so this is number of units per shift, and you can see how volatile it is. And the solid blue line is a 2-day average. It's a 4-shift 2-day average. So you can see the impact of the volatility onto the production. And interestingly, that the orange graph that represents the number of people that serve that we put on the shop floor to reach such production is also fluctuating, but not necessarily it resembles the pattern. So if you take a look on the staff graph, we can see that it can go as low as 28 and as high as 48. So the difference from the average could be up to 30%. So we see that there is a great so imagine if the client runs this operation himself, he should have about 44 to 48 people on the shop floor, and what these people will do when the production is in need of only 28. So we can talk here about the cost reduction in terms of the staff costs, staff-related costs, about to 30%. So the flex labor is, so we enter in the era of gig work, and we are as a Uber supplying the taxi just in case and just in time to our clients. We are supplying the skilled workforce just in line with the demand and the production. So here I will pass over to Hugh and to wrap up with the key takeaways. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so thank you, Sergio and Michael. So flexibility can make a massive difference, and now we see it as one of the most important things in COVID and post-COVID world, and it's going to become more important. But I want you to think about this. Temporary and flexible working is going to be the new normal. And the effectiveness of all your businesses has to be reconsidered. How is it you're going to remain competitive in your business, in your part of the world, based on where we now are? And volatility will influence future forecasts and requirements. And what we're seeing is that providing a flexible workforce can reduce 30% the cost on an ongoing basis. And that is the sort of thing that we need to think about very carefully if we are going to move Russia from 42nd to first in the world of work. Thank you.
Hugh, Sergio, Mikhail, thank you very much for a really interesting presentation, some fascinating insights. We've got a bunch of questions to get through, but the privilege of moderating is that I can ask the first question, which I will do. And my question is this. Very interesting to see a UK #1 in terms of temporary work penetration. Doesn't surprise me, obviously being based there half of my time. Hugh will well know that, however, that the perception of temporary working is not all positive, with the vast majority actually being low-paid workers, often living in paid poverty. I understand how it works at the lower level. What I don't understand really is how it works for the more professional, higher paid jobs, given the recruitment costs. And we all know the rigorous recruitment policies to attract talent to companies. How does that all fit together?
Okay. So, for example, in the UK, the biggest explosion in flexible working and, if you like, temporary working or just-in-time working is in the whole area of IT. And so Manpower through Experis has, we've seen a vast expansion of our IT workforce to many thousands. And this is because they're able to provide just-in-time resource for projects, etc. So this is the area, one of the areas of biggest demand. And these people are highly paid. They are on contracts that can be ended quickly, but they also, as individuals, have the ability to move on to something new. And so it is not true, of course, that temporary work is really lower paid, because equal pay requires that the pay levels are the same as permanent employees, certainly in many, many countries. So that's also a very important aspect of that.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a question from Michael Aspel, and his question is, how important will internships be to employers in the future, particularly interns working remotely, maybe even from their own country, which may be in a different location to the employers? And if employees are to be flexible, should governments be obliged to offer a universal basic income? Hugh, would you like to start with that one?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Thank you very much. The fact is that internships will become more and more important. And one of the things that we've worked with and we've done, for example, is where we have employed an intern who is on a 3 or 4 year university career. And we've taken them for 1 year and put them into different employers. And this has given them a real handle on doing, as it were, real work, but it's also allowed the employer to see what they really can do, because there's nothing like trying somebody out. It's like driving a car. You can see a car in the showroom, but until you get behind the wheel, then it's very difficult to really know what it's like. And of course, this is what you can do with internships can offer real opportunities to individuals. A very interesting aspect of this question is, of course, maybe even from their own country to different employers' countries. And yeah, that is interesting. There are some interesting, there's some challenging things around dual tax and other things that need to be sorted out. But this will become more and more an opportunity. I think, though, it may be packaged as a service, as it is today, perhaps from India, where you've got young people who are effectively internships, but it's being offered as a service from another company in some of these countries. I don't know, Sergio, whether you've got any thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I believe that is the point and the strategy. That's why we are seeing the freelance roles all over Europe and all over the countries grow massively because they consider them as a service and they provide the service for the company. And then, as you mentioned, the tax aspect, which is a problem, I would say, for today's point of view, get less important. So we definitely believe that is going to be the trend. In terms of incomes and regulations, I honestly believe that a contract, a document between employee and employer will value much less than it was in the past for both sides, because the commitment, and I would say the career, the task itself is going to be the most critical part. And the companies need flexibility. The companies need also to have productivity. So it means that they will also require to have abroad or from outside what they can have internally or the current staff. So definitely I believe that is going to be a trend. Governments, of course, need to facilitate manpower, and all the rest of, I would say, the sector is working close with a majority of the governments, not only on the conditions like Alf was mentioning and Hugh, to equalize the myth of a temporary employee that is lower paid or not career oriented or social oriented. So I believe that is definitely a trend that governments and companies like organizations like us will be working in the future.
And just to mention, Alf, the cost of the individual will be much more around not so much how much they're paid, but as Michael was highlighting, how long they're paid. Because this is going to be the key thing. So actually it's about the economy of, do I need somebody for 5 days, or actually can we do it in 4? And how does it match the job requirement or the volume requirement that, along the chart that Michael was showing, for example? Yeah.
Yes, and I would like to add that we, like several years ago, when there was a breakthrough of the blockchain and smart contracts, that these kind of technologies, maybe not the particular blockchain, but these kind of technologies can lead to the substantial decrease in the administration cost for the employees, and therefore they will be legally possible to run like 30 minutes a work assignment and paying taxes for that easily. So this will drive the interest from the employer as a taxpayer, for a taxpayer agent for the employees, to the employee itself, and collection taxes by these particular pieces of employment. And I have 2 comments on the question of Alf, about the range of the payment. On average, our associates, according to our internal study, they have about 40 to 42,000 rubles in monthly pay that is well aligned with the across Russia average payment. And the highest employee we have on our books is going as high as 10,000 USD per month. So this is, well, of course there's maybe 1 or 2 person like this, but our workforce is ranging from 17 to 69. Yes, there's a big range. And about the question of Michael about the universal basic income, I have my own viewpoint on this, that maybe that is not the question of the particular country, because you have to understand that some jobs cannot be taken online, like in a production floor or a courier job or some warehousing. You cannot take them online. So the business will be in the place it is. So there is a very big, challenge for a business to create a pool of not employees, but prospective employees, a pool from where it can take this stuff. And like Manpower, we see our goal in to help our clients to generate such pools of proprietary created persons that then they pick up from. So this will become very important, because the company DNA, yeah, and the person's values should match. Otherwise, they will not take long with their employment.
But one last point on that is the idea. Things have shifted, and the priority whereby you're taking advantage of people in very low-cost countries or people who are happy to. That is changing, and this will become more of a priority to maybe even up in a greater way pay from one country to the other. Thank you, Al.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we have time for one more question. This one's from Nick Grills, and the question is: is the try before you buy a concept, or is it being used in relation to permanent recruitment? And if so, what are the time periods you're talking about? Hugh, who do you think?
Yeah, definitely is not a concept, but is a very good strategy from the point of view of the company. For two aspects. What we are talking about here, the perfect match needs to be made from both sides. More and more have that relevance. And the recruitment costs, or the permanent cost, and the contract and all the investment should be made gradually, and can be made gradually. Why should I have the full cost of a recruitment or an assignment of a person if I don't know if she wants to come to remain with me, or if my curve of demand or business will grow? So usually what we advise and what we see also to the market, up to 9 months of a year in terms of temporary employment or assignment before making a permanent contract or a permanent employee is really the most effective way for companies also to overcome this stage, and is being made across the world already for 70 years, and we see more and more Russian organizations use that methodology.
Thank you. Any other comments on that?
No, I think we can put people through all sorts of things, psychometric tests, all sorts of clever recruitment tests, and we're doing this all the time. But at the end of the day, seeing somebody in action, understanding, and by the way, a very key part now of work is emotional intelligence and how we work with other people. And there's a new dimension now, because one of the things that's going to become very important in working life is how we can work remotely with people. And it's very different. And therefore, this is an aspect that is to try it out, to see if it works, to test it, is something that is going to become more important as time goes on. And so this is how we do see that.
Great.
And maybe I add a couple of figures just to the previous question. Legally in Russia, the probation period for majority of positions are limited to 3 months. And for like general director or chief accountant, it's 6 months. And in terms of try before you buy, if we talk about the staffing projects, this stipulated period is 9 months. So we can talk about the prolongation of this of the probation 3 times. And if you talk about outsourcing on the other side, we work with the clients that can ask for 4 hours. So the shortest period that we work with is 4 hours for example, a temporary secretary. So you can see that from 4 hours to 9 months, you can leverage into the legal framework and this try before you buy. So this quite flexible a solution that we offer on the market.
Thanks, Michael.
Great, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Hugh, Sergio, Mikhail, a huge thank you to you three. It's been a very, very interesting and engaging talk. If anyone has any follow-up questions, I'm sure you'd be happy to field those. Yeah. Details are on the details are on the website, and if you're unsure, just get in contact with us and we'll make sure you get those. Please join us for our next in the webinar series, which is next Wednesday on the 22nd of July. That's with the economist Chris Wiefer. That will be another very interesting webinar, and I hope you will join us for that. But for now, once again, thank you very much to Manpower Group, to Hugh, Sergio, Mikhail, and to all the audience for joining us. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye, bye, bye,
Yes.
bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.